Has Shedeur Sanders shown enough to be Cleveland's starting quarterback in 2026? Okay, let's dissect some game tape for a closer look at Shedeur's athletic instincts, decisiveness in the pocket, footwork, and dropback. I'll be joined by our staff writer covering the Browns, Zac Jackson, to go behind the scenes on perhaps the most talked about fifth-round draft pick of all time. All right, we'll start with Shedeur's decision-making in the pocket and his work as a dropback passer. Here we go with Cleveland's first red zone opportunity against Tennessee. A third down play, and we're going to see one of the main problems that plagued Shedeur Sanders in college showing back up on tape. We're going to see right here in this bunch, these two guys here are going to work a switch release, and that's going to be the first thing that Shedeur is going to be looking at, okay? So we look at the switch release. We see one guy going outside of the corner and the other guy going inside, either on a post or he's going to stop depending on the coverage. The switch situation here is basically to just get these guys confused. They switch pass after the ball is snapped. So you're trying to create confusion, maybe a natural rub, what have you. And as we're going to see on this, sometimes it creates problems for your own team as well. As we see right there, one of Shedeur's first reads get all junked up as we see this player coming through get kind of jammed and off his route. So now he's kind of off kilter. So he's out. Rather than taking his eyes off of this and moving on down to his whip route here, which is Jerry Jeudy, which is open, or he could flip his eyes to the backside to Harold Fannin, which is open. Instead, he starts doing this thing where he drifts, points, spins, and kind of makes up whatever he wants to do and throws the ball into the stands, right? At least he didn't turn it over. So we'll say that's at least not a total negative, but not good, especially on a play where it could have been converted in a play that probably should have been at least a first down, right? So a good quarterback is going to make that play happen. The other thing to look at here that's a problem and has been a problem for him is his drop back. When we talk about the drop back game, that's anytime the ball is snapped to him and he's not in a play action situation, be it under center or out of the shotgun. We're talking either 3-step drops, 5-step drops, 7-step drops. Sometimes we'll say 3 steps with a hitch, 5 steps with a hitch. What we see here is none of that. We see, I call this a Shedeur drop. He makes this up. Those drops are in for a reason. When you land on 1, 2, 3, land, I need to be ready to go. I need to come up on a hitch and be ready to throw the football. This is the main issue with him as a quarterback right now. It's why he took a lot of sacks at Colorado that weren't necessary, and it was the big thing that a lot of people focused on and why he dropped, as terms of on the field anyway, and why he dropped in the draft. Okay, so now let's go inside the Browns building with Zac Jackson to find out how Kevin Stefanski is working on Shedeur Sanders.
From a pocket presence standpoint, I think obviously it is getting better. That was probably the number one just knock on Shedeur from watching him play quarterback, is that he was too quick to bail, that he maybe didn't trust what he saw. So I think there is organic growth. I think there's an emphasis on that.
To me, Kevin Stefanski is kind of the exact type of coach that you would want developing a guy like Shedeur Sanders. But what do you think on Stefanski in general? You've been around him a ton over the last several years.
Yeah, I would undoubtedly say that he's been good at patching things together, at getting guys ready to go, at dealing with playing a limited hand. I think he has been hands-on in Shedeur's development. This goes back to this whole weird situation. But from the start, it was like they're trying to develop the wrong quarterback here. Because of the two rookies,
right.
Like this is the more talented one. Day 1,
I agree.
Day 30, week 6, whatever.
On draft
right?
day,
yeah,
in my opinion.
Right,
yeah.
right. So you hear him talk about hungry dogs. That's what they named it, based on the Browns moniker. The opportunity periods that started way back in July. And rookie minicamp was different. And every other day in training camp was different. And through the season, there would be a group of 15 or 20 guys who would stay out for the hungry dogs periods. That is where Shedeur got his work. He got some scout team work that was scripted for him, and he got 4 to 6 to maybe sometimes, but rarely 8 or 10 plays of running the Brown stuff and hungry dogs once or at most twice after practice. And so that's where it was. So he's come a long way in a short amount of time. He had fundamental things to clean up. Yeah. He obviously was worth development.
Okay, so moving on now to something that can't be taught, Shedeur Sanders' athletic instincts. When he is on the move, Shedeur's instincts take over, and as we can see here, we'll just play it live all the way through. Sees that pressure, puts the back foot down, and then just immediately throws the ball right on time to Jerry Jeudy for an easy first down. This is a dangerous call. A lot of times these play actions down here near the 10 and inside, this is right on the line, where you're asking your quarterback to kind of drift toward the end zone, can be like a real problem, right? As we see right here, if he's not athletic, this could be a real issue. Maybe a fumble happens here, whatever it is, but not going to happen. He gets rid of the ball very quickly and on time. This is something I think people underrated in the draft process. He is a very, very gifted short area athlete, as we see right there. Really smooth. A lot of guys are going to have a lot of trouble with that throw. Shedeur does that all the time. He did that a lot at Colorado as well. Easy first down. So now let's bring Zac back on for more insight into some of these flashes. Okay, Zac, so one of my favorite parts about Shedeur during the pre-draft process was studying his athletic instincts, which reminds me a lot of his dad in terms of his ability to maneuver in tight spaces, get out of a pocket with a lot of people coming at him, and then keep his head up downfield to make a throw. How much of those athletic instincts have you seen this season from Shedeur, despite those limited reps on the field in practice or in games?
Yeah, pretty impressive. And the number one thing is you can tell what they're telling him. Just don't turn your back, right? Go to the next read, bail out, throw it away, or keep plays alive. He's kept some really impressive plays alive, specifically to Harold Fannin. But just don't turn your back on the defense, because that's when you get in trouble. And Shedeur had a bad habit of drifting away when he didn't have to. And that was because in college he was getting hit all the time, or he was throwing quick stuff to Travis Hunter and he was drifting away. And so they said in the NFL, like, you're going to get 2 or 3 layups. You're not going to get 8 or 9. And if you drift and you miss those, you're not going to get them back. So you've got to stand in there. So they started harping 100%. On that from day one.
Now let's end with an example where Shedeur Sanders puts everything together. Okay, so this one was really good. This is just about everything that you want to see from your quarterback, especially a young guy who's active and needs to show off his athleticism. So you got front side read situation here. The one in green is going to be Harold Fannin, who's going to be running that little Texas route, following, this is probably just called a follow concept, following the other tight end on the inline right there, and then Fannin's going to come back through with the Texas. So that is going to be his first read to Harold Fannin, right? So in the same situation, though, as we're going to see, or as we saw earlier, the same thing happens where his receiver, this time Fannin, in some poor weather, slips, right? So his eyes now need to immediately go away from that player. And remember that he has the backside post to Jerry Jeudy. He had the single high safety, bang. No hesitation, flips his eyes that time, plants his feet, and rips the ball out, which is another thing. Great flip there by Jerry Jeudy. Another thing, too, that I think is underrated about Shedeur. This is something that we talk about a lot with Patrick Mahomes. He's the master of this. But the ability to create sort of velocity from your hips and from your just sort of like your core. He's exploding into the ball here, right? Turns and then just explodes. And that ball's got a lot more zip on it than you think he can throw on it with 205 pounds or whatever it is. So he doesn't have the world's strongest arm. He doesn't have the biggest frame or anything like that. But this is another great example of when things work with his vision, he can stand in there and make all the throws that just about anybody else needs you to make in the NFL. Okay, so what does all this mean for Shedeur Sanders' future in Cleveland? Let's bring back Zac for more. For next season, do we think we've seen enough? Can Shedeur Sanders be the Browns quarterback in 2026?
He can be. Now, in fairness to him, to the Browns, to everyone, we haven't seen enough yet, right? But what we've seen is encouraging. It's imperfect, but it's intriguing. The arrow is certainly trending up as we talk about it right now. Shedeur Sanders probably can't be the backup for the 2026 Cleveland Browns, right?
Yeah,
we've seen this. So is he going to be playing somewhere else, or is he going to be the starter? And we don't know. That depends on who's making the selection. That depends on where they land and what's available. Depends on what other options are out there. But this kid has shown that he can play.
So if you're trying to compare Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, to me, you'll just end up splitting hairs. I think both players are good enough to compete for a job right now. I think both players are good enough to be long-term backups. And I think both players are good enough maybe even to develop into something a team could use down the line. I do think Shedeur Sanders is better. I think he's more talented. And I think with the right situation, he could be someone that wins games for a team in the future. The winner of that job, Sanders or Gabriel, will be the guy who gets his teammates' trust the most and does the best with it.